Man, I really gotta cut loose on the Naruto running. I think it's giving me pelvic burns. Well, whatever. What do you think, Saturn?
I don't care.
Just as helpful as always. This is why I love you so much. How is it that you're able to talk again?
That's not important.
But I want to know.
Don't you have something you need to be doing?
You're right! My daily searching through a closet hoping to find physical copies of Naruto Ultimate Ninja 3, 4, and 5. Wasn't in this one either.
Obviously.
So I'm gonna be honest here, I hardly ever touched Naruto Ultimate Ninja 4, and Ultimate Ninja 5 was, and is still to this day, not available in the US, so I'm having to do this off of the PS2 emulator, which I don't condone whatsoever. There's no way I can record my PS2 at the moment, so it's just sitting underneath my bed collecting dust. Me and Ultimate Ninja 4 have a bit of a weird history. I never really had the most experiences with this game, mainly because I never owned it, and the only time I ever got to play it was whenever I was visiting a friend's house. Either that or I was watching Let's Plays on the game in 2009 with the really bad camera quality. So what sets this game apart from the other three? Well, for starters, this isn't the Naruto series, but rather the Naruto Shippuden series, the direct sequel similar to what Dragon Ball Z is to Dragon Ball. When I first came across this, I didn't know what to think. Was that Naruto wearing an all-new tracksuit with longer hair, a new headband? Get the fuck out of here. This kid didn't grow up, I said to myself, but he did, and with him growing up, there was obviously a sense of maturity about him. He wasn't the same obnoxious little kid that I, alongside many others, tried to be like. He was more colorful, more inspiring. He ditched the orange and blue prison suit with headband combo for a more sleek orange and black design that looks really good, and the same thing can be said about the other characters as well. They have a sort of pizzazz about them that I just like seeing, you know, when they're more mature and older. You can tell that a lot of these characters have actually grown up, and in a way it kind of feels like we've grown up alongside them. I mean, look at Naruto, what with his new design and attitude, or Sakura with her, you know. My point is, these characters have taken many steps forward in the right direction, I feel, so they look the part and to some extent act the part, thus implying that they've had that good old-fashioned character development. So of course, with me being the character-loving idiot that I am, this would be one of the main things I pay attention to jumping into the Shippuden series, so I'm pretty confident when saying I've grown up with these guys at this point. I've been keeping up with Naruto for like 15 plus years now. But nobody really cares about that stuff, so I shouldn't really waste anyone's time here, right, Saturn?
Whatever.
See, this is why I love you so much. You're so reliable.
Get on with the game.
So as I mentioned earlier, me and Ultimate Ninja 4 have a bit of a weird history. I didn't play this one as much as the other three, so I'm not really too familiar with it. And it sucks too, because I remember really wanting this game back in the day, but I couldn't find it anywhere for some reason, and I don't know why. I do know that it released on April 5th, 2007, exactly 2 months after the official anime would air in February of that same year, so this game is heavily based off of the manga's material. Makes sense seeing as to how that was more established with actual story and content to go off of as opposed to the anime that only had like 4 episodes when the game released. I think this sets a good example for video games based off of anime. Not everyone reads the manga or watches a lot of these animes, so they acquire their knowledge through a more convenient and fun source being video games. In fact, I already mentioned this, but the way I got into Naruto was thanks to Ultimate Ninja 2, so it's definitely possible if done correctly, you know, but I'm gonna spare everyone the details for now, so let's get into the story. The story begins with Naruto waking up from a dream he had about his and Sasuke's fight at the Final Valley. After waking up, Jiraiya is there to greet him and goes over his next training assignment, as this actually takes place a couple of months before Naruto returns home to the Leaf Village. Jiraiya then hands Naruto these white prayer beads that he has to put around both his arms and legs for the training to start, then casts a sealing jutsu on them to make them super heavy and explains that the beads will change color as he continues with his regular training. Soon after, they head to a small remote village known as the Tree Felling Village, where all of the villagers have gathered for a human sacrificing ceremony, where they've chosen this little girl named Aoi to be the sacrificial pawn. Wait, so you're telling me they've chosen this adorable little girl named Aoi to be a human sacrifice? Why?
It's to pacify a demon known as Black Shadow so that the village can live in prosperity.
Yeah, but a human sacrificing ceremony seems pretty extreme.
Finish the story.
Naruto, seeing this, decides to go into the Crystal Cave in order to save her, and about 2 hours later, that's what he does. Naruto learns about the origin of the human sacrifice. Jiraiya removes his prayer beads, thus making him more powerful. He learns more about Aoi and her situation, thus wanting to help her even more, and he defeats the demon living inside the cave with the help of his 9-tailed chakra. To say that this is a very short, simple story would be a huge understatement in my opinion, mainly because of the way it's told. It's not like Ultimate Ninja 2's Ghetto Mark arc, where everything was more overwhelming and blown in your face with very little context to back it up. Instead, this game fixes those issues I had prior with Ultimate Ninja 2, like where you had the Ghetto Mark Sealing Jutsu cast on Kakashi, and the Ghetto Mark Confusion Jutsu cast on Naruto on top of the reanimation jutsu being done. What this game does differently is keep its level of consistency throughout the entire arc, which is what I ultimately appreciate because everything ties into the main objective of the story, which is to A. Save Aoi from sacrificing herself, and B. Defeat the demon Dark Shadow. Of course, not everything is explained to you right off the bat. You have to progress further into the story in order to get all of the information you need, like when you learn more about why the sacrifices are happening, the history of the tree felling village. Everything is told to you in a way that's very understandable and again stays consistent with the main objective of the story. I think what really drew me in more with this story would have to be Aoi's reasoning for sacrificing herself. You learn that Aoi sacrifices herself as a way to try to save her mother Tsubaki, who has an incurable illness, but here's the kicker. Turns out she's actually trying to find a cure for her mother by confronting the demon and receiving leaves from this tree of life, a healing property that can cure any sickness. You can tell this was the main selling point of the game with how immersive and expansive it felt. I honestly never expected to enjoy this as much as I did. I mean, yeah, it's still a 2D fighting game down to its core, but this little filler arc introduced an entirely new way to experience the story that resembles your typical action RPG game. It pretty much plays like Ultimate Contest a little bit from Ultimate Ninja 3, but with a few restrictions. Like instead of a fully open world map or whatever Ultimate Ninja 3 was, it's now divided into certain chunks, which was most likely done in order to make traveling to various locations easier. Taking inspiration from Ultimate Ninja 2, I see, not bad, not bad. This also helps with the Naruto aspect of the action RPG style, and what I mean is there's essentially a balance between the Naruto gameplay and the action RPG gameplay. The last one speaks for itself. You can run around, fight enemies, level up, find items, etc, your typical action RPG trope. I mainly want to talk about the Naruto aspect, more specifically the prayer beads. They play a pretty big role in the story, not only acting as a form of training for Naruto, but also a way that introduces new skills and mechanics. See, the way the prayer beads work is they have 5 colors, being white, blue, green, yellow, and red, and they change color the more XP you get, which is basically the equivalent to leveling up. While changing colors, they grant you new abilities and skills as well as increase your health and chakra, though it's a lot more prevalent when you're engaged in combat sequences, like learning new attacks that can utilize Naruto's abilities. It's a fun mechanic and a unique way of leveling up. I wish more games did stuff like this where it ties into the main story and progression. The free roam gameplay also utilizes his abilities, like you can use his Rasengan to destroy walls or his shadow clone jutsu to launch yourself into the air to get extra height for the more hard to reach places. They add variety to the gameplay, meshing in that Naruto spice, but if you want my honest opinion, I don't really like the way they're implemented here. Like, I'm not upset that these jutsu aren't as interesting as they would be in the combat sequences, you know, using your shadow clones to fight alongside you or the Rasengan to kill multiple enemies at once, but I do think they could have gone about using these in more creative ways. Like, the Rasengan could have been used to discover secrets and alternate pathways, or destroy some of these crystals spread throughout the crystal cave for a new form of currency or something. And the shadow clones could have been used to make bridges for bottomless pit gaps or ladders for the more hard to reach places and secret areas. You know, some more diversity for the free roam gameplay, but we unfortunately don't get that. After this little side story is where the actual story of Naruto Shippuden begins, and like I said previously, I'm not gonna explain the story of Naruto Shippuden, that'd take way too long. All you really need to know is the story takes place from the beginning of Naruto Shippuden all the way up to when Naruto beats Itachi while on his way to save Gaara after being kidnapped by the Akatsuki. Pretty weird place to end off the initial story within the actual story in my opinion. I want to say it feels rushed, but then again this could have been done probably because there wasn't enough material to go off of in the manga, hence why this is so short in comparison and ends so abruptly. I feel like this should have ended at least at the end of the arc, you know, where they save Gaara and go back home, but it didn't, and now we get what feels like a half-assed arc that you can literally beat in under 3 hours. Like, I'm not mad that this part of the story mode was so short or anything. If anything, I expected it to be this long, seeing that this did come out 2 months after the anime, and I'm assuming the anime adaptation for a series this recognizable and established would come out pretty quick after the manga. But my main issue has to do with the ending. It's such a weird place to end the game in my opinion, especially with how abrupt and cliffhanger-ish it feels. I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that this feels rushed, which in some areas it does. Remember, you can beat the entirety of this arc in no less than 3 hours, which is saying something considering the anime covered this arc within 32 episodes, while the manga finished it within 36 chapters, and the part where Naruto fights Itachi was only 3 episodes long, or by extension 3 chapters. Make no mistake that it's still a pretty decent retelling of Naruto Shippuden to some extent, but I'm saying that the overall story could have been handled a lot better and actually finished if they tried and took a little more time. Anyways, apart from all that, like Ultimate Contest and Ultimate Ninja 3 after you beat the initial story mode, there's a free mode where you can pretty much do whatever, and by whatever, I really mean you can catch up on tasks you were given during the actual story but were too occupied to finish. I'll be honest, I didn't care enough about the free mode to actually try and finish the game 100%, I just wanted to beat the game and move on. Not to mention, most things you'll be preoccupied with is either catching frogs that Jiraiya lost, which I only caught like 3, and take out Imposter Ninja. Oh my god, Sasuke can use Sexy Jutsu in Ultimate Ninja 2? Hey! What the? Who the hell are you? Isn't it obvious? I'm you. Why are you wearing your hat like that? That's not important. Kind of is if you're gonna be me. Shut up! The reason why I barged in is because I'm here to take over. Take over the bed? Your life. My wife? Your life. My scythe? Your life. My kite? Your life. Your life, damn it, your life! Oh! Yeah, how are you gonna do that? I actually didn't think that far ahead.
Makes sense.
Look, I'm just here to take over someone's life. Look, man, I get you. Long day of work, minimal pay, wife's not giving you much attention. My wife? What are you talking about?
Nobody ever knows.
Can I go back to my reading of Sasuke using Sexy Jutsu in Ultimate Ninja 2? Not until I take over someone's life. Take over your own!
Let's just have him take over yours.
Good idea! Whoa, whoa, whoa! They're alright, you know. That's all I can really say about them, I guess. The main one I actually participated in was the imposter one, because I'm not going to look for like 15 different frogs spread throughout the entire open world map. I prefer to just play the game, beat the story, and move on, so that's what I did. And after you beat the story, you can move on to the hero mode, which is this game's version of Hero's History, and I have to say it's handled way better here in comparison to Ultimate Ninja 3. The story is explained in greater detail, which makes things much easier to understand. It has these nice illustrations that fit with the context of whatever's going on, which I must add are fully voice acted by the way, and the choice of music and animation quality aren't bad either. Sure, they're kinda ripped from Ultimate Ninja 3's Hero's History mode, but there was a fair amount of brand new music and animations as well to show that there is more effort put into this mode. And that's what I call good game design, because not only are we getting a returning mode from a previous game that we technically don't even have to touch at all, but they're going above and beyond to give us more content to make the experience better. I'd say my only gripe here with this is that you need a certain currency, so to speak, called the pieces of memory to advance throughout most of this mode. They're found in the story, and as you can see, I don't really have that many. This wasn't really on my bucket list. As I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to beat the story mode and go on with the rest of the game, which in hindsight wasn't really the best idea because I actually did want to continue playing through this. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back into the story mode and nab the rest of those pieces of memory to ensure that my replayability won't be in vain. I love it! Getting into the mechanics, it's pretty much the same as Ultimate Ninja 3, just with a few new ones. For starters, activating your awakening. It's a lot different here compared to how it was in the previous game. In my opinion, it feels like it has a risk and reward factor to it. What I mean is, your health needs to be pretty low in order to even activate it now, and once it is that low, you can pull off a new secret technique called the reversal. It's kinda like the first two Ultimate Ninja games where you have more than one secret technique. The only difference here is you still technically have one secret technique, but it changes for specific reasons like this one, and I'd prefer it to stay like this, honestly. It feels a lot more rewarding knowing that as I'm close to the brink of losing, I can unleash this powerful awakening to bounce myself back into the fight no problem. See, with Ultimate Ninja 3's awakening mechanic, it felt like more of a prototype, you know, something you could just spring onto me at the beginning of the match, and it makes sense seeing as to how Ultimate Ninja 3 was the first game to have this, so I'm not upset, not in the slightest. If anything, I feel like it adds more balance to the gameplay now, acting as more of a handicap. Take the time where I have to fight Itachi as Naruto, for example. I got my ass handed to me multiple times against this edgy fuck. Tsukuyomi, take more damage, fight with the purple filter on. It never ended until I activated my reversal and unleashed my awakening, and I can proudly say from personal experience that it was definitely needed in that time of need. The next mechanic isn't as complex. It's really just a rock paper scissors like thing where you have to repeatedly press the button on whichever one you chose. It's very simple and straight to the point. I hardly ever came across this mechanic during my playthrough, and to be honest, it kinda reminds me of the jutsu clashes with the way it's set up. It has the struggle battle feel to it, basically to where you have to struggle more than your opponent to come out on top. It's very simple, hence why it's not as complex. The only major difference I see with this mechanic as opposed to the jutsu clashes is that this relies more on your decision making rather than a specific button the game tells you to rapidly press until you end up burning a hole in your controller. Damn it! If you want my honest opinion, I think this mechanic is alright, I guess. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't really use this that much, so I can't really say much about something I hardly ever used, so that's it, I guess. Other than that, I think this game was handled pretty well. It has enough going for it to justify that it's a brand new game experience while also sticking to its Naruto Ultimate Ninja roots. Am I a bit salty about the weird ending point of the story? Yes, but that can be overlooked by everything else the game has to offer. Remember, the story isn't the only selling point of this game. The main one, yeah, but there are still other aspects and elements that make this game feel like its own experience, as I've just stated. With it having its own filler story that stays really consistent throughout the entirety of the arc and the hero mode feeling a lot more immersive, plus the inclusion of new and returning characters, I'd say this is well past the typical fighting game sequel trope in my opinion. This also helps because it's going based off of the Naruto Shippuden series, which at the time, for me at least, I consider this to be its own series instead of just a continuation of a series that came before it. Regardless, I honestly found this game to be really fun and had a good time with it. Will Ultimate Ninja 5 match up in comparison? Let's see. Alright, this game is a little different. As I've already mentioned, I'm using an emulator to run this because that's literally the only way I'm able to play the game. What I mean is, this game never released in the US, only Japan and Europe, as there was going to be an American release most likely around the time the European version came out, but unfortunately due to time constraints, the game never saw the light of day in America. It's also weird because the European version of this game released in 2009 for Naruto's 10th anniversary, while the Japanese version released in 2007. So I can only assume they must have had issues dubbing the game over to English because this game is only dubbed in Japanese, which is fine. I'm okay with playing the game as is just as long as I can read it in English. That's all that matters. I'm not gonna let Japanese voices break my immersion, so let's get into the game. On to the story first. It's not a continuation from where the story ended off in Ultimate Ninja 4. Instead, it retells the story in a bit more of a quicker manner, and what I mean is, it removes a lot of the side elements like filler, missions, and dialogue to make it longer and actually stay on track with the anime and manga. So removing the unnecessary aspects can make it a lot more engaging in my opinion, and CC2 did not disappoint as the story takes place from the beginning of Naruto Shippuden all the way up to when Team Kakashi reunites with Sasuke for the first time, and actually ends off at a point that makes sense. I'm not gonna repeat myself on how I feel about Ultimate Ninja 4's Shippuden story arc. I just feel like this one is 10 times better because it actually ends once you finish the arc instead of halfway through the first one like in the previous game. I also really like the pacing, not too many unnecessary side elements getting in the way here. Like yeah, there are side missions and other things you can do while playing through and after you complete the story, but most of them actually tie into it, so you're gonna have to do them regardless, but they can make things a lot more interesting at times. For example, while on your way to the Tenchi Bridge, you have to make a detour into the Sand Village to get a permit that allows you to travel to and from the Land of Rivers without any questioning, and I'll be honest, at first this felt really tedious because what in the hell does this have to do with Naruto Shippuden? But upon looking at it a bit further, I realized this was added most likely to make the story stand out as its own retelling of the Naruto Shippuden series, and it works! Naruto gets tricked by a shady peddler into fighting some bandits. You soon find out that the so-called shady peddler was in fact the wanted criminal. Oh, big fucking whoop. Then you receive the permit and can move on with the story. Like I said earlier, everything ties in with each other and ultimately stays consistent, which is good. Consistency in my opinion equals a pretty good story experience, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like every game, this one isn't perfect and has its fair share of flaws. The main issues I have with the story mode is that there are so many damn bandits and traps littered throughout the entire map. Like, I'm not kidding when I say someone had a fucking field day with this shit. Hey Fred?
Yeah, Frank?
Yeah, it's about these bandits and traps. Where would you like them to go exactly?
And just place them anywhere.
Anywhere like everywhere?
Whatever works for you, buddy.
Okay. I don't really feel like I need to go too in depth on this, by the way. The main reason I have such an issue with there being so many bandits and traps spread throughout the entire map is because it kind of slows down your momentum with wanting to breeze through the story. Not to mention, it gets really repetitive pretty fast because not only are they spread throughout a large majority of the map, but the bandits also follow you around if you run anywhere near them. Though there is a way to slow them down, which is done by throwing shuriken at them, but I wouldn't count on this too much, it hardly ever works. I guess when you sum everything up, this is just Naruto Ultimate Ninja 4's story but with more emphasis on the Shippuden arc and less emphasis on filler, hence why this is as long as it is. Yeah, they got rid of the platforming mechanics like the Shadow Clone Jump and Leaf Dash, but they replaced them with more characters you can run around with in the free roam or support characters when you fight bandits. This was Naruto's 10th anniversary. Like, we're actually doing platforming in this game, and they thought it'd be a great idea to remove the mechanics that we ultimately needed for characters we can only run around with for like 5 minutes. Why? That seems so half-assed to me. But besides all that, everything else is generally the same for the most part in terms of the core gameplay. The newest additions are pretty bare and lackluster in my opinion, mainly having to do with your secret techniques. One is the inclusion of this new link mode, which is basically a team secret technique between you and a certain character, while the other is a timing mechanic, pretty much like quick time events or rhythm games. I can't really say too much about these because 1, I've only used them like twice, and 2, they're probably the most self-explanatory mechanics in the entire series. I mean, it's cool, you know, new ways of going about pulling off your secret techniques. Cool, but as I mentioned earlier, these are still pretty bare and lackluster in comparison to what the other games gave us, which isn't a bad thing because they make up for it with the story, ensuring a better experience for us to enjoy. And alongside the better story also means a better character roster, and I have to say I am very impressed with this character roster. Fuck me, there are a lot of characters in this game. Even the Yellow Flash is back, and he wasn't even in Ultimate Ninja 4, which was a huge letdown.
Actually, he is in the game as a final unlockable character. Dumbass.
See, the reason why I haven't really gone over Ultimate Ninja 4's roster is because it didn't really have that much of a lineup of Shippuden characters, which I just think is a bit disappointing considering this is supposed to be the new Naruto experience, yet 85% of the roster is taken up by Ultimate Ninja 3 characters. As with this game, my prayers have been heard. There are so many Shippuden characters in this game, and they all fit really well. Team Asuma, Team Kurenai, the new and improved Team Kakashi with Sai and Yamato. Sasori has his different forms in this game. Hell, even Sasuke is here. You know how I feel about Sasuke, but I kinda have a soft spot for Shippuden Sasuke, so I guess I'll cut him some slack. Out of all of these characters, I'd say there are only like 2 that I consider to be my top picks in the game, Shippuden Neji and Shippuden Sasuke. They both have that moveset that just kinda does it for me, you know, and feels more fitting to their actual character, like they've actually improved with their fighting style as time went on instead of feeling exactly like they did in previous games. With Naruto Shippuden revolving around everyone being older, it only makes sense that their fighting style and moveset would progress alongside them, ensuring that they're taking the natural direction forward instead of running from the Hidden Leaf Village to the Hidden Sand Village backwards. Basically, everything comes down to consistency, which is what I feel a series like this needs in order to promise a good experience, because if we never had consistency in these games, everything would just be all over the place. The story, the gameplay, the characters and their movesets, it'd be a complete fucking mess. If you want my thoughts on everyone else, they're fine, you know. Everyone's here now, both new and old, with the exclusion of some filler characters, yet they still add the 4th Hokage. That's such a missed opportunity in my opinion. Like, this could have been the Ultimate Ninja game to house every single character in the entire series. This was Naruto's 10th anniversary title after all. Like, we could have gotten Taijutsu Naruto, Byakugan Hinata, Anbu Kakashi, even Nine-Tailed Naruto and Curse Mark Sasuke from Ultimate Ninja 1. There were even original characters in the Japanese version of Ultimate Ninja 2 that we could have gotten added here. But no, the 4th Hokage is enough. When you boil it down, Ultimate Ninja 4 and 5, while not as fun as the previous 3 games, were a lot more immersive and engaging in my opinion. You know, almost like I'm experiencing Naruto Shippuden for the first time again. I like the new approach that CC2 went for with these 2 games. I really like it actually, and I feel like if they were to continue with these games as is on the next gen lineup of consoles with better mechanics, enhanced graphics, and online play, then these could have easily been some of the most competitive fighting games out there.
Sounds like you should contact CC2 about this.
I don't really feel comfortable contacting them unless I own all the physical version of their games.
Well, I guess you won't be getting that Ultimate Ninja 2 remake.
You know, now that you put it like that, I think I'm going back in that closet for another search. I've been in here for 6 hours already and I still can't find them. Where the fuck could they be?